Okay, hello everybody. It's nice to see you on such a lovely day here in Aspen. We have a terrific panel for you on women running the game in sports today with Christine Brennan, my friend, who is a USA Today columnist and the author of this new book right here, which I've just started reading on Caitlin Clark. It's available in the bookstore, so please grab a copy. She's more newsworthy today than ever. We'll get to that in a minute. We're with Carol Stiff, who is a former colleague of mine at ESPN and now has created the Women's Sports Network. And Carolyn Tisch, who I've known for a while as well. Woot woot, that's right. That's right. Carolyn does many things. There you go.
Nice supportive crowd here.
You got the friends and family crowd, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Carolyn is an advisor for the New York Giants, the governor of FC Gotham, which is the best, one of the best teams in women. The best.
We could call it the best.
In women's soccer, and she's also an investor in a number of companies, and we're going to cover all of the leadership that each of these three people have provided in the space in a variety of ways. But let me first start with an expression of gratitude. To date, women sports has been largely run by men, but I can tell you that my career has been empowered by women. Not just my mother encouraging me to be everything I could be when I was younger, but it was my wife, and I spoke back here in 2009 when I wrote a book and encouraged me to found the Sports and Society program. Christine, going back to when I was 17 years old as a reporter in the Miami Herald newsroom. I was a little part-time guy, just glad to be there, and she was covering the University of Miami, and I remember one time I called in so nervous to report my game scores, and I couldn't get my words right. And she was just nice and calm and like, you got this. It's okay, Tom. We'll help you through it.
And he did have it. That's the bottom line.
It's really incredible. Some of the women involved with the Institute have been very supportive of this program, the Sports and Society program. Lori Tisch, who is with us. Carolyn was actually one of our very first advisors in the early days of Sports Society. You were, right out of Harvard, I think, at that time. And we had some good conversations. Carrie Penner supports some of our work as well. And it's important work. We have a project initiative called Project Play, which is all about building healthy kids and communities through sports. We've got a really ambitious initiative called 63 by 30, getting 63% of youth playing sports in this country by the year 2030. That stuff doesn't happen unless people believe in you and guide you. And so I'm just extremely grateful for all the women in my life who showed faith and helped me along. So I just want to recognize as we get started here. But I'd actually like to kind of go, there's a lot happening right now, but I'd actually like to spin out 25 years from now, because women's sports is in a moment of transition. But I would like to get a sense from each of you about what the end game is. Where will women's sports be 25 years from now? What role will they play, you hope, in the ecosystem? What contribution will they make to society? And how might they differ, if at all, from the way men's sports is delivered? Christine?
Well, thanks, Tom, and great to see everybody. So that would be the 78th birthday of Title IX, which just turned 53 the other day, and obviously is the reason we're here in many ways, and the reason that the nation is where it is, having fallen in love with what we've created. The girl you see in the kitchen every morning, the girl that you wave at on the driveway as she's lugging her lacrosse bag or volleyball gear or softball gear to another practice, your granddaughter, your niece, what have you. She is competitive. She is playing sports the way that her grandmother never had the opportunity. And it's not just a law, which is significant enough, although it's been ignored for many years by a lot of those football schools, but a little detail. But it's also a mindset. We want our daughters to play sports. Back I'll go back to answer your question. 53 years ago, when Richard Nixon, of all people, signed Title IX on June 23rd, 1972, opening the floodgates for girls and women to play sports, if you saw a girl on a field, sports field, people did double takes, triple takes, and the odds are that she was there telling her brother it was time to come home for dinner. Now, think about it. When you're driving in your neighborhood, and you see a whole rugby team out there of young women or girls, high school girls, field hockey, college practicing, all women. Do you even give it a second thought? Of course not, right? So that's where we've come from. Will we have equal pay 50 years from now in the WNBA? Probably not, but it will be so much better. The issue with NIL in colleges, it's going to be 95% men right now, which is stunning. There'll be a lot of lawsuits. The idea of, it's fine to pay men 95% of the money. Is that okay at our publicly funded institutions? How will that play out? Will it all just implode and crash and burn and we'll start over with all the transferring and all that stuff? I don't know. That's a tough one. But I think what we've seen over the last 50 years, Tom, we will see again in that same incremental change. And it is slow, but then 100 years of Title IX, or what it will eventually be, will be extraordinary. But it may not be equal prize money. It may not be equal attendance. Caitlin Clark is giving the WNBA that, but she's injured again now, unfortunately. This morning we got that news, which is devastating news for the WNBA, and for her, of course, too, but financially for the WNBA. But there will be more. There'll be girls chucking it from the parking lot and making it, and that's the entertainment value. So I think it's the mindset that will carry us through here. Parents, near and dear to your heart, families, parents, youth sports, they demand their daughters to be having these opportunities. They'll fight those battles, move that up another 25 years. I'm very bullish, even though there are obviously very significant issues as well. But I think it will be a lot better. But the measurements we normally use, equal pay, equal attendance, equal TV ratings, I'm not sure we'll get there, but the participation is the victory. And I think we declare victory on that even now, and then move ahead for these greater battles.
Carol?
25 years ago, 25 years out, I can't wait. I really can't wait anymore. I really honestly did not want to be part of launching an all-women sports network 24/7. Honest. I was at ESPN for 30 years. Fought every day. Why not? Why not? Why can't we be on this night? Why am I always on Sunday afternoon up against the NFL and Tiger Woods and NBA? And I will often say, if you build it, they will come. And we're building it. We're building it. And the more women that participate in sports and have the opportunity to play become our CEOs. And that's what we're seeing now. I was in a meeting one time at ESPN, and an advertiser came to New York City, and they were our sales group. I was in Connecticut, threw out a deal for the NBA. And the advertiser was a female. She was an Olympic rower. So she, at the table, she's going through this, 36-page deck with the WNBA on page 37, 38. So she went through the first few pages, and ESPN, I'm sure sales was giving it their best, because they really wanted this, it was a huge advertiser. And she shut down the deck, and she goes, "Where's the WNBA? It's coming." Well, no, it's their 25th anniversary, and I'm looking, and there's not even 25 games in the regular season. Oh, well, contractually, you only have to do 19. So the phone call comes up to my office. "Carol, can you find room for 6 more games?" And I'm like, "Done. We can do that tomorrow. We do it right now. I got you. No problem." So until we start seeing women owners, women CEOs, 94% of women that play sports are our CEOs in the C-suites, making decisions for women's sports, we'll see a change. I do agree. I think participation rates are off the charts right now at the high school and younger age. I agree. I don't think we'll see equality between the WNBA and the NBA salaries, but my goodness, can we get some better refereeing in the league? I just don't understand, but I have a solution. Always come to the table with a solution. So hopefully they'll listen to it, but we'll talk more, but I'll throw to you.
So I've sat in a lot of panels about, women in sports. 25 years from now, I hope those panels go away.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about sports. And by the way, there happen to be female owners on the stage. And by the way, we happen to be talking about female sports teams because what we're doing is sports. And we've had to kind of add that description in it for so long. And don't get me wrong, I'm so happy that the Aspen Institute is talking about women's sports. It should have a seat at the table. But 25 years from now, I hope that we don't have to be talking about it as women's sports anymore. We have the best athletes in the world. We have the best product on the field. And now it's time, I think, for the rest of the commercial side, as you mentioned, to catch up to that so that we're just talking about it for the great product that it is. One of the things we talk about at Gotham FC, the women's soccer team that we own, is when you look at, if any of you you're probably all fans of certain teams, and if you named what the best global brands are out there in sports, you might talk about, we were talking about the Cowboys before, you might talk with the Cowboys, you might talk with the Giants, you might talk with the New York Yankees, you might talk with the Chicago Bulls. There's no women's team on that list. And 25 years from now, we feel very confident there will be at least one women's team on that list. We hope to be the first, but hopefully there will be many women's teams on that list.
So what will be the triggers that make that happen? What developments need to be put in place to create that environment?
So for a long time, women's sports, to the extent people were talking about women's sports, it really was kind of as a charity. Yeah. It was the sort of, I feel I have a daughter, so I'm going to also invest in the women's game. In a lot of European countries where the men's and women's teams have shared resources, they quite literally were free. Like you went to go buy a men's team, and it was like, surprise, cherry on top, you also get a women's team. That's not the model here. That's not the model in the US. That's not the model in the NWSL, the league that we're investors in. Now you see people showing up because, not just because it makes them feel good, but because there's a real business case for it. And the real, I think, driver of what will make this sustainable is that. We see it with brands that are investing in sponsorship and want to be a part of Gotham. They might have maybe showed up because they thought it was a good thing for their brand, but they're staying because there's a real ROI associated with it. One of the first sponsors of Gotham was a company called CarMax, and they took a bet early. That, no one knew who Gotham was. We didn't have a full stadium, but they kind of saw around the corner and saw what was coming. We just, fast forward to now, we just renewed our partnership with them, and they were very clear. This wasn't a charity. They had, for anyone that comes from marketing, there's something called a marketing media mix model. So not to get too technical, but basically throw all the different types of marketing that you do and look at the model and see which ones are driving the biggest impact on your sales. And for CarMax, that was Gotham. And that was their bet on women's sports. So they're not pulling from a charity bucket. They're not pulling from their philanthropy bucket. They are pulling from their marketing bucket. They are pulling dollars away from men's teams that they used to be invested in and are still invested in. And they are putting it towards the women's game, not because it feels good and because it helps them sleep at night, but because there's a real business case for it.
Is the audience different? I'm curious, Carol. Is the audience different? And is it a matter of developing that audience further, or is it competing with the same folks who are watching men's sports?
It's still primarily more male, but in some cases, women's demographics are higher. It does quite well with the WNBA, and WSL does well, but it's still primarily male-driven, but catching up. But getting to your point, isn't it exciting to see ads on TV with Sue Bird?
Love Sue Bird.
Owner
of Gotham FC.
Yep. Hall of Famer. I mean, crazy. It took this long to get female role models in front of the TV set. But yeah, I think the attendance in the arena is different than what you see on television. Obviously, it's younger, it's family, it's affordable. it's just different. I don't know.
Yeah, our fan base is pretty different. I think it's one of the reasons brands are so attracted to working with us is while our fans do also watch the NFL, they watch the NBA, they look very different. If you walk into a Gotham game, the fan experience is completely different than going to an NFL game or an NBA game. Our fans are more female, they are younger, they are more diverse, they are more inclusive, they care about different things. So it's if you have your brand hat on and you want to know where can I go find that audience, this is where you can go find it.
Let me just add one more thing and then I'll let you go, Christy. In college athletics, I'll use basketball as an example, the women stay in college for 4 years. And so you can follow their trajectory. You can follow their journey. I live in Connecticut, very close to UConn, national champion, and I look at that crowd, and it's quite older. And they're like, oh, that's my granddaughter out there. I mean, they just bond, and they want to know everything about the players, and that helps build and grow into the WNBA. But I think that, once again, it's affordable.
Yeah.
And you're seeing families and sometimes an older demographic.
So I want to talk about Caitlin Clark. Okay, and what we've learned from the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. She is, the word you use is the same word I use, which she's magical. She's not good, she's not great, she's magical, meaning she captures the imagination.
Exactly.
Whether it be the ability to shoot logo threes, or there's something compelling about her that has unlocked the fascination of the public that we have not seen really with any female athlete to date.
Right.
What is the Caitlin Clark formula? How do you look at that phenomenon?
Well, I have spent a little time on this, writing a book, and I didn't know Caitlin Clark. I'd never covered an Iowa game. I had no connection to Caitlin Clark. But as a sports columnist for all these years, I was just a couple years older than the 17-year-old high school boy, by the way. I was just starting my career. But watching all this develop, as we have, since the 80s, and Carol, of course, you've been there fighting those battles in the trenches. I've been the journalist, like you, Tom, recording it, writing it, talking about it, opining on it, the subject. And I'm watching people stand in the cold in the Big Ten in January as this barnstorming athlete is going from Columbus, Ohio to College Park, Maryland, and these huge arenas, 18,000, 19,000. And you've got people, hundreds of them, lined up in the cold in January, February for hours. This isn't in Iowa. We know this is going on in Iowa, right? This is happening around the Big Ten, in areas where there's plenty, Washington, D.C., and it happened to be my nieces, and are standing in line for the rest of us, 10 of us going to that Iowa-Maryland game in February of 2024. And to see that, and to see all the adoration, and then, of course, the TV ratings for the women's final compared to the men in 2024. The UConn men had played the next night after Iowa and South Carolina. And the women had 4 million more viewers than the men. I'm going to say that sentence again because I never thought I would live to see the day. 4 million more people watched the women than the men. Now, part of it, yeah. And
ABC.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it was afternoon. The men had prime time.
That's right. I'm going to say something about that.
Right, and also, to be honest, of course, the women should have prime time, and this woman has fought so hard for those and fought those battles. But we're talking about a female athlete here. I never, ever thought I would see the day. Now, I realize, and we can discuss it, and I've got it all in the book, the racial aspect here. It's, of course, the WNBA, 74% black league. I go into this in depth, and you've got a white woman coming in, and the WNBA failed miserably, the leadership, to prepare everyone for the moment. Not because they're damsels in distress. They are not. They're tough, strong athletes. But this was tough, and it's not my voice. It's Dr. Harry Edwards, and it's the great Brianna Scurry, goalkeeper from the 1999 team, the most first great famous black player on the most beloved women's team on earth, the U.S. women's national soccer team. So all these issues go into this, and it makes people then struggle with loving Caitlin Clark or whatever. Folks, it's Caitlin Clark. It is Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese is great. Angel Reese cannot sell out her arena in Chicago without Caitlin Clark. These are facts, and sometimes they upset people, and people get mad at me. That's fine. Facts are an interesting thing. They're facts. And so, why? And I address this to your point. Why is it that the Indiana Fever average home attendance last year with Caitlin Clark was higher than the average home attendance of 5 NBA teams? Again, words we could never even imagine uttering. Because she's a basketball player, but she's really an entertainer. Why did grandmothers who couldn't tell the difference between a bogey and a birdie plan their Sunday afternoons in April for years around Tiger Woods' final round tee time? He's an entertainer. And this is the rarest of the rare things. Paige Beckers is great. She's not Caitlin Clark and not close. I wish she were. I wish that all of these incredible players, especially black women, who I've written about and talked about since the 90s. I've covered the WNBA the whole time, the Atlanta Olympics onwards. It never happened for them, and that is absolutely a shame in the male-dominated mainstream sports world that ignored these women for a generation. But it's happening now. And the spotlight on Caitlin Clark then shines on all these players who never have gotten the attention they deserved. That's my view of it. Obviously, there are other views, although, again, you cannot argue money and numbers. And so it is the magic of this woman chucking it, as I said, from the parking lot, and it goes in, or the incredible passes that she's passing, I hate to say this, passing it like a man, right? And who does that attract? Women, of course, and as you said, women we want women, all women who play sports to be then watching and buying tickets and going to games, and they are. But the guys who always, I did these sports talk shows, Tom, you know I did, and they would just rip me to shreds for talking about how great women's basketball was, because I covered a lot of women's Final Fours. And they'd laugh. These are the guys now wearing 22 jerseys out at the supermarket. That's where we are, and again, I'm not minimizing the racial issue, not at all. It's all over the book. But you cannot argue with this, and for her to be out now, the attendance is going to plummet. The viewership, the last time she was out, which was 5 games a couple weeks ago, and these injuries, this is really, really concerning now. Obviously for her, first of all, but for the league. The last time she was out, more than half of the WNBA TV audience just disappeared. So you know in the league office right now, they are beyond apoplectic. They won't say it, but they are. And I hope that helps explain a little the why. This kid, also 4 years, you got to know her. Again, white woman, absolutely. It would be ridiculous to not deal with that. Her teammates, social media, people love them. And then, of course, improbably taking her team to 2 final games, 2 national championships, when they had no business. That Iowa team had no business being in the finals against South Carolina or UConn or whatever. So LSU, of course, winning. So anyway, bottom line, there's a few thoughts for you, whether you may agree or disagree.
Well, I'll come back to the treatment of Caitlin Clark in a minute. But Carolyn, from the outside in, as someone who has a soccer franchise and is at the center of building up the NWSL, how do you assess the Caitlin Clark phenomenon? What lessons do you take away that might be applied to grow soccer, women's soccer?
So when I was at Peloton, I used to run marketing at Peloton many years ago, and well, not so many years ago, a few years ago, not that old. But anyway, what we saw really clear was that the love for the Peloton brand really was directly love for the Peloton instructors. And you would come to an audience like this and people would say, oh, I love my Peloton bike. And then the next sentence was because, or not even because, and I love Robin or Allie or, fill in the blank instructor. And so we saw this insight really early on, which was kind of there was social media, but it wasn't like the social media that, as dominating as it was today, that we are in a star-driven era. And fast forward so to build a brand, a kind of global brand, you have to build the brand of the stars that are a part of that. And so fast forward to now, besides for Caitlin Clark, across all of sports, it is an athlete-driven era. Think about, the love for Patrick Mahomes is across the country. And now 50 years ago, did you think Kansas City Chiefs were going to have fans across the country? No, but a player like Patrick Mahomes can do that. Caitlin Clark is very much living that. She happens to be a female athlete doing that. But so when we think about from the NWSL perspective, from the Gotham perspective, we need to build up the stars on our team, tell their stories, build that fandom around them so that we can have, they might not be Caitlin Clark, but we can create, our own versions of them. And we see that. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Just one last thought on that is we have a player on our team named Rose Lavelle. She's from Cincinnati, Ohio. Anytime Gotham plays anywhere remotely near Cincinnati, Ohio, we have an entire section of people in Gotham jerseys screaming their head off because they're so proud of the star of Rose, from Cincinnati. So we definitely see that. Again, it might not get the headlines that Caitlin's getting, but we very much see that every day.
You know what's fascinating to me about Caitlin Clark is she has built up this persona and people are attracted to her, but she is not in the business of saying outlandish things, doing things that are ridiculous. She's not saying, look at me. In fact, she's handled very difficult situations with an enormous amount of class. So I wonder if part of the attraction with her is she represents something, whether it be sportsmanship or grace, that is marketable in and of itself. And is that a piece of the puzzle as we start to think about women's sports?
You take it.
Well, yes. I think people are, we're not getting into politics, but in this world of ours, the notion that someone can be kind and sign autographs and bounce back, and you have someone shove, like the Kennedy Carter hit last year, I deal with that in the book. And by the way, it's unauthorized. Obviously, I'm a journalist. I would not work with Caitlin Clark. So she did answer about 40 to 50 questions. So, she's throughout the book, but it is no holds barred book for sure on everything. And Kennedy Carter, just blindsides her, the hip check, and within 2 minutes, and I don't think anyone realized this until I went and watched the game 7,000 times as I watched all these games for this book, and double checking every fact. Within 2 minutes, she's doing an ESPN interview, Caitlin Clark is. Now, this is a moment where Caitlin, you've all seen that Kennedy Carter hit, and I'm so sorry, it's racial. I hate that. I've been just talking about athletes doing things. Well, at the same time, you've got Angel Reese, and Angel and Caitlin have great respect for one another. They really do. And they'll play on a lot of Olympic teams together, and it's going to be okay. It's fine. But Angel, I won't say leaps for joy, but comes to her feet very quickly applauding Caitlin Clark now on the court. Just a total cheap shot by her teammate. It's unfortunate, and I don't have, it's Tamika Catching saying that in the book. Billie Jean King talks in the book about this. Anyway, all this is going on. Caitlin Clark shoots a free throw that ends up, by the way, winning the game because it's a 1-point game. But they don't throw Carter out. And now she's going to this interview on ESPN Live. So for anyone who thinks, and I'm not saying anyone here does, but there are people out there, it's programmed, and her PR people tell her what to say. She could have unloaded on anyone at that moment. We've seen many, many athletes do it.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, it wasn't a basketball play. We're going to move on. We've got to get our defense, and immediately pivots. I say in the book, she's 22 going on 40 or 50. What an incredible gift for the WNBA, because she could have started something right there and would have had every right to do it. And I think most male athletes probably, might have. I've covered more men's sports than women's sports in my career by far. And no. So I think that appeals to people. The fact that she didn't transfer. I think there is an old school thought, this is your area of expertise from the college game, that all this moving around, while it's fine and we're glad that athletes have rights, who's on your team? Well, you said it, 4 years. So the TV ratings are there because the interest is there. But that Iowa team, so there's that too. And she's also funny, and the Instagram posts, I think people, again, I said this earlier, can feel like they're in the practice with her. She's hilarious. Aaliyah Boston loves her. Erica Wheeler, great woman who, of course, you saw her caring for her the other game. Black woman loses her starting job to Caitlin Clark and becomes Caitlin Clark's best friend and benefactor the entire season. That's a thread throughout the book. It is absolutely marvelous. It gives me chills. So people really love her, as you said, but hopefully those are some of the reasons why.
I just want to add one little
Yeah.
I was on a panel discussion with Ann Clark, Caitlin's mom, and that question came up. Where'd she get this coolness and who media trained her? And her mom said she had 0 media training. 0. It's amazing how she keeps her cool.
Yeah. So what works from a business point of view, right? So there's these moments, and we've had one with Caitlin Clark, where something, unsportsmanlike will happen. It'll be some tense moment. And one point of view is, well, look, women compete just like men can. It's really no different than men's sports. And others, Chris Everett has expressed this point of view, this should be different. Where's the sportsmanship? But from a business point of view, what sells? I mean, you have a product you're trying to sell. What draws more eyeballs to what you're selling? Is it those flare-ups, or is it something larger?
It's amazing. There was a fight a few years ago with the WNBA. It was a brawl in Detroit, and I remember being on my sofa, and my feet came off. I go, oh no, and it led SportsCenter, and it's controversy, and it's women fighting.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, women don't fight. Unfortunately, it's still sensationalism that drives the news. I mean, look at our news now. I mean, it's all negative, or a fire here, or a killing, or a death. It's never about Gotham City wins it all. Let's lead.
Well,
with it.
so I have a bit of a different perspective. I actually think it's great for the game. I think, back to your first, not the hitting, to be clear, but that people are attracted, that we should, back to your first question of what it look like 25 years ago and 25 years from now, and the hope is that we're talking about women's sports like we're talking about men's sports. That is a part of the game. And when players, when there's a brawl on the field, we don't want kids' gloves when it happens on our team. When we had an issue recently with people with some bad refereeing, and our fans are booing at the refs are coming off the field. I was actually walking onto the field, and everyone starts booing, and I thought they were booing at me. And I realized they were booing at the refs. That's great. We love that. Yeah. I mean, we hope the refereeing gets better, but we want the fandom. There's a lot of things about women's sports that do look different. That the experience is different. The way people connect to our players is different. But this is sports, and these are the best athletes in the world competing. And sometimes that gets ugly, and we want for women's sports to be treated the same way as men's sports does. We have to embrace that. That is a part of sports.
I want to ask you about equity as a frame or a strategy for growth going forward, right? I mean, the construct of Title IX, which is a federal law that applies to educational institutions, is the essence of it is what the men have, the women should get as well. They never have gotten it, but that's the general argument, and that has created real opportunities, right? But now we see the growth of entities like Athletes Unlimited, very much drawn up by women, including Cassidy, who I play volleyball with in San Clemente. New competition structures, a way of approaching the game that is not the mirror image of how men's sports has been created. How much, looking forward here, how much of the future growth of women's sports will be fostered by an equity argument versus, or in addition to, women fully defining the shape of what women's sports is?
Well, I think one thing, I'm not sure if this is going to answer it completely, but today's 10-year-old girl, well, she'll be 50 someday, and well, I'll be dead, but that's all right. But let me know how it goes. But they're going to run. Women are going to run the country. We thought it was maybe going to be like 2016, but no. But they are. All of these women that are going to run for president in the 30s and 40s, and onward, and they're going to win. Of course, they're going to win. This has to happen, and they'll be fortunate. You mentioned all the women in the C-suites, the 94%. And the common denominator for all these women that are going to be leading the country, leading the Fortune 500 companies, leading colleges, universities, will be that they played sports because of Title IX, right? They're not necessarily Olympic gold medalists, but they played maybe till 8th grade, then they moved on to some speech and, debate class or, whatever they did, but Spanish club. But nonetheless, we're creating millions and millions and millions of these girls and women every year. We're just pumping them out, right? The 10-year-old will be 12 years, she'll be graduating, she'll go to, get her master's and her MBA or whatever, and on she goes, right? Like you. I mean, this is what we are creating. So they're going to demand, but they're going to run stuff, to be very blunt and not using the lingo of business. They're going to run stuff, and they're going to want to be involved with women's sports. And so we haven't even begun to picture yet, Tom. I'm not going to get maybe in the weeds on your answer, but the big view, and this is part of the 25 years from now or 50 years from now, oh my gosh. I mean, you're not going to stop these women from investing, from wanting their daughters to play sport. This is going to, and now we've got the problem with guys, right? The real concern that some have about the guys are playing video games and sitting there and not doing, not physically fit, and the girls are out playing sports. And by the way, I'm not a Pollyanna. We need to do a much better job reaching girls and women in underserved areas. With Title IX, we are still failing with many, many young women of color. We've nailed the suburbs, right? We've got the suburbs, and everyone can pay for travel. We don't yet have either the rural underserved or the urban underserved. We're really missing the boat there. We've got to figure that out too, because they have the power to be the CEOs as well. But anyway, then I think they will absolutely demand it, but even more than demanding it, they'll be running it, so they'll be able to do it.
And when they're running it, when women are running sports or have more of them are running sports, will sports itself change? Do women bring something unique to the ownership conversation that is not there? And we're generalizing, everybody's different, of course. But, or is a female owner the same thing as a male owner? They just happen to be
You'd know.
more differently, yeah.
Well, I've never been a male owner, so I don't exactly know, but I could try to answer the question. So I think for a long time, the legacy male leagues thought about when they said, oh, we want to attract a female audience, they had this sort of shrink it and pink it philosophy, which meant basically like, okay, just take what we did for the men and make it a little more pink and it will work for women. And I think you see the legacy male leagues realizing that doesn't really work. And so you do need to attract a female audience differently than you need to attract a male audience. And if we're going to build a female audience strategy for places like the NFL or the NBA, we probably should have a female in the room, not as the only voice in the room, but a voice in the room. And so what we see, kind of going back to your first question, what we see at the NWSL is a real opportunity to take the best of what works in the men's leagues, but also to create something different. And so I think about from a league perspective, so I'm the chair of the executive committee of the league, and one of the things we've done recently is we got rid of the college draft, which in European football, soccer totally makes sense, is kind of what they do. In the US, in the men's leagues, college draft is one of the key markers of a league. And that felt crazy to a lot of people, but it was the right thing to do for our league at the time. So we are able to, thinking about from a Gotham perspective, the fan experience. If you go to an NFL game, if you said, I'm gonna get rid of the tailgate and instead I'm gonna put a live band and a face painter and a little pitch where kids can like kick a soccer ball or throw a football into a net, you'd say you're ruining America's religion. But for Gotham, people love it. We used to have 90 minutes of soccer. We now have 2 hours of a party before every game because that's what works for our league and for our team. And so at the, in a with women in charge, at a women's league, we can take what works in the men's leagues and we can also create something different that works for a women's league.
Are you finding, because you spent a lot of time advising the Giants as well, are you finding that men in NFL circles are appreciating the point of view that you and Charlotte Jones and others are bringing to the table?
Well, I won't speak for Charlotte Jones. I think what's interesting for us, uniquely being co-owners in a legacy men's team like the Giants and owners of the Gotham, is we can actually think about kind of using Gotham as a testing ground for the NFL in a way that, again, using the tailgate example, that would be so high risk. The fan experience at an NFL game is so sacrosanct. You change the post touchdown football celebration and everyone, panics and says, you've ruined the team, you've ruined the league. We can make a lot of changes at Gotham. We can test things and we can actually bring them there. So actually the head of marketing at the Giants was at a Gotham game recently, saw our fan experience, loved it, and actually thought about what things can we bring from there to the Giants. So there is this sort of, and there's a lot of owners, by the way, in the NWSL that own in other men's leagues too. So I think we're all kind of seeing that there can be complementary ways that each team can kind of learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carol, I'm curious with the media environment. It's shifting rapidly. Streaming,
Yes, yeah.
social media,
I would love to have an
artificial
opportunity.
intelligence.
Yep.
I mean, this is an environment where, problem solvers, creative people, entrepreneurs, people who can think in new ways are really going to be the stars of the future. This new media environment, what kind of opportunities does it create for women's sports?
Well, it helped us develop the Women's Sports Network, which is a 24/7 streaming network. Get it on your phone right now. We're on connected TVs.
I think they're getting it on their phone right now.
Yeah.
Oh, they may be texting.
It's where the future is. Obviously, ESPN's moving all their channels to streaming in the fall. So we launched this network, and I really want to key in on what we do. So I'm on my back 9, and what I've noticed in women's sports is we don't storytell. We only storytell every 4 years at the Olympics. And we all love the gymnastics and the figure skating and all that, and those wonderful stories. There are so many wonderful stories in women's sports that aren't being told. Why? So the Women's Sports Network, I have a little video here. Let me just tee it up. We're 24/7, we're easy to find, we're free. No subscription, no subscription needed. Now, rights are a concern. We don't run the WNBA games, we don't have the rights to the NWSL, they're on major networks, and that's not our model. Our model is to enhance what they're doing. So we storytell through our studio in LA. We can do some specific programming in an NWSL game. We can do highlights. We can do like a sports center of only women's sports. We have a show called The World According to, and then fill in the blank. The World According to Sage Erickson. Who knows Sage Erickson? Anyone in this room? Join me. I had no idea who Sage Erickson was, and I'm in women's sports my entire life. She's a surfer, okay? So we owned the library to the World Surf League. So we sat her down. She's world champion. She's like the Olympic. She's like Golden Girl, right? So we sat her down. I didn't know her at all. I said, hey, tell me what's your favorite wave? How did you ride that curl? And we went into the library, piecemealed it to what came out of her mouth, and ran a six-part series. Well, we can do that with the NWSL. So we can do that with all our sports. Anyhow, at the end of the conversation with her, she started to cry. And I'm like, oh, what did we ask her? We asked her the wrong question. And she goes, no, I'm crying because you're telling me my mother's going to see what I did with my life. And that's what we can do. So getting, to the Caitlin Clarks, her story came along at a beautiful time. And because of what she did on the court, all of a sudden CBS is running games. Big Ten's taking every game, and it grew. So what we can do is enhance, be the surround sound of all these professional athletes, and they can come to us for their story.
You're watching the Women's Sports Network highlights, games. We love talking about women's pro sports.
I want people at home to feel like they're right here with us.
Women's sport, it helps expand the mind of the viewer.
It was the atmosphere that we deserve.
Shoots! Scores! Did she do it? She does!
I'm Chloe Kim.
I'm Ellie Bastinelli.
And you're watching the Women's Sports Network.
The Women's Sports Network.
Women's Sports Network.
It would have woken you up before lunch.
Yeah.
But for the NWSL, we're talking to a few teams already. We would love to be telling your stories. We can go off season and tell your story and keep their voices alive and then go into the next season. Or we can rerun, which we do. People come for reruns in women's sports. You already know who won, but they come. And we do have some live rights. We had the League One volleyball. We had some sailing. We had the PWHL, the hockey league. So we have everything, a mix of great opportunities for women in sports.
I got one more question, then we're going to go to Q&A from the audience. But it's for you, Carolyn. So we're entering the golden decade of sports here. We got the club men's World Cup right this year, World Cup next year, Olympics. We've got other mega events coming through, the 2034 Olympics as well.
Yeah, LA.
Many, not all of these events are men's events. Is there an opportunity in there for women? And if so, what is it?
We very much believe there is. We think about the countdown to the World Cup as much at Gotham as probably we do at the Giants. We see this as a moment where there are going to be millions and millions of soccer fans globally descending on New York. We are hosting the finals at MetLife Stadium. And back to where we started on what is the opportunity to build a global brand, this is the moment for us to go build that global brand. So one of the things we've thought about is, when we set our schedule, many of teams, including Gotham, don't own our stadium. So the stadium where we play, Sports Illustrated Stadium, will be taken over during the World Cup. Conventional wisdom would say, don't play your games during the World Cup. No one's paying attention. Everyone's just going to be focused on the men's game. We went to the league and said, what if we do play during the World Cup? And we might not be in our home stadium, and TBD where we'll be playing. We're still figuring that out. But what we're trying to do is to say there's going to be tens of millions of fans of soccer globally in New York during that weekend. We're going to have a Gotham game on a Friday night or Sunday afternoon, whatever it is, sometime around it. We haven't figured this out yet, so we're still figuring it out. But the idea is we can actually capitalize on that, because what we know is, again, back to we have the best product. The best women's soccer players in the world play in the NWSL. Many of them play on Gotham. So we are going to take these fans of global soccer and show them what the best product in the world is. And our hunch is that we are going to convert a lot of them into fans of Gotham.
Incredible. All right, I'd like to go to a few questions. Yeah, great answer. Great answer.
Got one over here, too.
Hi. First of all, thank you for doing this and everything that you guys do for women's sports. My question is, what do you all think the best way to convert fans in sports that aren't women's basketball, like women's hockey and softball, where most of the fan base is in college? How do you think we can convert those fans to the newer professional leagues without like a single star like we have in Caitlin Clark in women's basketball?
Go to a game. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's affordable. I mentioned that already. Just get out there. It's entertaining.
But what you're saying is like the colleges are, give us a sport or two that you're talking about.
Like the numbers in the softball World Series
Yeah,
this year, they're
huge.
amazing, but no one's there needs to be better numbers in the professional
Right.
softball. How do we get there without a star like Caitlin?
Right, so the follow-up was, because why colleges? All of these numbers are bigger, the TV viewership is bigger for the college than the pros. And in obviously some cases men's too. I mean, because the WNBA with Clark has higher ratings sometimes than the NBA, and of course college is higher than all of it. Why? Because you have alums, right? I mean, think of your school. All of a sudden, I went to Northwestern, and all of a sudden, we're really good in women's lacrosse, and we didn't even know we had lacrosse. And now, Wilbon's texting me, and we're going to games, and right? Because it's Northwestern, right? Or your schools. So what I would do is bring games to these college campuses.
Yeah.
I would absolutely, and if you've got, to your point about Rose in Cincy, do it at the college level. So, and obviously the WNBA did this with the Indiana Fever. They took Caitlin Clark back to Iowa. They didn't, I mean, they're going to sell out anyway, but I would do that with every single one of these sports. The Women's Lacrosse League, the Women's Volleyball, there's the Indoor Volleyball League. I would bring it, I would put that in, I would literally have that going from Nebraska to Wisconsin to Nebraska to Wisconsin, right? Go where the people are, go where the fans are. You got the TV streaming going on now, whether it's ESPN or ABC or Carol Steff, then now you build it and then you bring it maybe back to the city. You know, obviously you have to move it around, but the college fans are there, go to them.
Yep.
One way we think about fandom, which is a little bit kind of flipping the model, the model in men's sports, legacy sports, is usually generational. You're a Giants fan because your grandfather was a Giants fan, then maybe your father was a Giants fan, and it gets passed down, often through men. we have an opportunity now with participation, particularly in girls sports, rising at the youth level, to start the fandom at the youth level. So soccer in particular, but softball as well is rising. There are more girls playing soccer than have ever played before. As a parent, you're going to those games every weekend. Those girls and boys don't often have then a team that they're a fan of. So we have an opportunity actually to then go to that level and say, we want every girls soccer team in the New York, New Jersey area has to come to a Gotham game. And then those parents become fans as well. So there's a way to kind of start it at the grassroots level and bring it up to the professional level.
And there's data backing that too. Shows that kids who play a particular sport are 6.4 times more likely to become avid fans of that sport. And we know that in our gut, but there's actually numbers behind Carolyn's
She had
idea.
a question over there.
Yeah.
Carolyn, so proud of you.
Oh,
like a visual bumps on I've been
you,
a
Lisa.
fan way before all this. Now it's on another level. But how many teams are in the league now, and how do you see the league growing really and where it will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, thank you for asking the question. So there's 15 teams in the league now. Denver and Boston will start playing next year, which are already. It's amazing to see the expansion teams have done such an incredible job. Denver, I think, had 10,000 season ticket deposits within 24 hours of going live. Talk about, no stars, have not announced a coach, have not announced a single player, and they have 10,000 people that are ready to sign up and be season ticket members. They're not coming to one game, they are buying season tickets. So we are seeing in each new city we go into, we are seeing there is incredible pent-up demand. So I don't know what the magic number is of how many teams we will get to eventually, but we are very much thinking about expansion in the right way, in a sustainable way for the league.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Paige Jernigan. This is so exciting. Every day I open the newspaper, it feels like I'm reading about another fund opening up with a sports thesis. Have we seen the data yet if they are investing in women's sports? And secondly, how great is it that season 4 of Ted Lasso will be on a women's team? Yeah.
I did know.
I'd like to take that one
Yeah,
because, Eddie, we're not seeing investors come to the table as quickly as I thought. I thought it would have been this year. Last year, advertisers included. So last year we heard, we already spent our budget before women's sports really got hot, taking off. So I thought this year they would come. Yes, they're coming, but they're coming to the top tier. So they're going to ESPN one-time buy. They're going to CBS. They're going to NBC. They're going to ION now. And that's what we're seeing. And we haven't really marketed ourselves like we really should be. And I'm praying and hoping that more people come to the table now, because you better get in now when it's affordable. And I notice, I don't know, in the landscape of sports, a lot of people want to own teams. A lot of wealthy investors, they can't afford an NFL team or an NBA team, and they're quickly gobbling up and really excited to own women's teams, which is terrific.
And the women who are joining in, some of them Hollywood stars.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to grab some of these big. Serena, right, is huge in this area. Cincinnati actually was trying to get their franchise, right? And they had Caitlin Clark as part of their investment group. They didn't get it. Denver won that one. But my sense is they'll want to, obviously get, and other big names in sports. Absolutely. So that's fun too. Yep.
So just to put some numbers behind it, so the LA expansion team, Angel City,
Right.
they paid $2 million to become an expansion team in 2021. 3 years later, that team sold to Bob Iger and Willow Bait for $250 million. So the returns are there, which is why you're seeing new investors coming in. And the new investors coming in are not, many are passionate about women's sports. Many are not. To your point, they want to buy a team, and this is the right investment to make. The Bay team, 6th Street is the lead, which is a private equity fund, is the lead owner. Carlyle is a lead owner in Seattle team. And these are private equity firms who their entire job is to bring a return on capital to their LPs, and they're investing in women's sports because they're seeing that return.
We also just saw Major League Baseball make a significant investment in professional women's softball.
Softball, what they, AU.
Through Athletes Unlimited. So there's some progress. The smart ones are getting early, right? The institutional players. All right, listen, we've run out of time. I know there are a number of questions here.
Come on
Happy
up.
to come up afterward, but
Can I just
thank you
end
for
with one thing? One
Yeah.
thing. If you want to help us, go to a game, buy the merchandise,
Exactly.
and watch. Drop them.
Perfect ending.
on that. Okay, Carol, Carolyn, Christine, thank you so much for
Tom,
the
thank
great
you.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.